Thanks, man. That's so nice of you.
Yeah. All right, we're live. All right, we're live.
Hi.
We're over here talking about the sugar diet. I guess that's what we would call it. And let's cheers. We got some new brew over here. Got my buddy Russell on for today.
Hello. The war on fat begins.
The reason why Russell is on the show today is because he asks great questions. And you guys as fans, unfortunately, you guys ask really dumb questions. And I needed somebody to come in here with some intelligent questions for once. So I didn't rip out all my hair.
Wow.
No, that's not true.
You really set me up.
No, we get a lot of great questions from the audience. But I think that the questions that Russell has, I think, are the questions that everybody has. And the questions that I even have about, moving forward with this diet and doing this diet. Is it something that's, going to be long-term? Is it something that's sustainable? What kind of energy are you able to get from it? What about the protein? Because I'm not talking a ton about like the protein being through the roof. And so it could be kind of complicated. And so I think, some of the stuff I've shared in the past, the war on carbs, the low carb diets, the ketogenic stuff. And then more recently over the last maybe year or so, I've been talking a little bit more about having leaner sources of meat being a good thing to invest in, because a lot of people are still consuming too many calories. And a lot of people are getting stuck on a carnivore diet. Well, once you start to do that, then you start to maybe really get a little low on energy because you mainly are just eating protein, and protein isn't a great source of energy. Carbs or fat are sources of energy. And so that's what kind of made me sort of move to this. I became aware of this diet from Cole Robinson. And there's also a guy on YouTube that you can follow named Durian Ryder, who's been doing it for like 15 years. And he's got a whole whole stack of people behind him that also are doing the diet as well. But I started it probably about 8 weeks ago. And I think that you maybe just recently started to kind of play around with some of these things.
2 or 3 weeks, I'm sort of getting in there. Longer sort of transitioning to leaner meats, but more like leaning in on grains and trying to lean out the fat to get off of stall city.
Yeah.
So yeah, I've been. It's been nice. It's been a good adjustment.
And we also have to make people aware. Russell was 505 pounds. His lowest weight on the more recent times is what, 365?
365, and I was 366 this morning.
Yeah, and you have really good consistency. Those of you that have been following the Power Project for a long time, you guys hear me reference Russell quite a bit. Russell, can you kind of talk about your chart, your weight loss chart? Because I always think that that's good. We brought it up on screen and stuff like that before, but you just have a consistent trend downward, but there's been some bumps along the way.
Yeah, I mean, like you got me committed to weighing in every day, and I weigh in every day. I'll text you and our buddies on our thread, and and then I just at the end of the month I just delete everything but the first. So I'm only keeping the first like over time, but I weigh in every day. And yeah, dude, it's it'll go down for a while and then kick up a little bit on a high point and then go down again for a while. And it's been a little slide up and down, but and I will like you said, I was 365 a couple weeks ago, and then I was 376 not that long after. Like it'll slide up and down just because my body's reacting to whatever I'm doing with it. Sometimes it's has nothing to do with eating like trash. Sometimes it does. Sometimes I'm just swollen from a heavy workout. Sometimes I had lots of salt. But over time though, if you don't worry about like what's going on this week and you just back out,
which is hard to do,
really hard to do, and just back out to what's been going on over weeks, months, and years, you go, okay, I'm making progress. This is working. And I take like some comfort. I can finally sort of say to myself, okay, man, you've lost 140 pounds. Like you can't, that's not dismissible. This is working. Whatever we're doing, it's working,
And both of us have this thing in common. We both lost 100 pounds and we're both keeping it off.
Yeah.
So, like I think that people in their journey, like they want to do better. They want to be better and better all the time. But sometimes they're just putting maybe a little too much pressure on themselves. The scale is not going to literally go down every day. And it might not even go down every single week. You're going to have some blips here and there. It's going to go, I guess if you're like being super strict and you have navigated diets before, maybe you can have that discipline to make it trend downward for like the whole month and the whole next month and so on. But for the most part, your weight's going to vary a little bit.
Yeah, man. And I think that's sort of like part of the dichotomy of like what you're doing in the world, like you're speaking to such a wide variety of audience. And like lately, you've been talking a lot to the 300-pound boys, you know, or the 240-pound girls, or whatever like the equivalent will be. When also, you know, like elite athletes have followed you for decades at this point, and you're trying to give something to everybody all at the same time. And it doesn't always like universally, you know, answer everybody's questions, some of the things that you say, but I've just been noticing that if you back down a little bit, and I've been really trying hard to stay away from this whole yo-yo dieting thing. I think we are obsessed with losing weight as fast as possible. We even got a text from Bora today about who's on Rogan today, right? You know, the queen of yo-yo dieting. I mean, no offense. No offense. I mean, I don't know much about her, but I just remember, you know,
Julian Michaels. Yeah.
I just remember from Biggest Loser yelling at these people to go faster.
Right.
And that's the memories I have of her. And I know that she's out there advocating for some really good things right now and whatnot. I'm not trying to throw stones at her. I'm just saying, like, my generation, and I think this new generation, is obsessed with losing the weight as fast as possible. And if you're not really ready to take on that giant mountain of just hammering down weight because you're getting ready for a prep, or you have a hard goal that you're trying to make, I think it hurts a lot of people. So I've just, you know, maybe I'm sort of steering this a different way than what you asked, but I'm going to advocate, like, don't yo-yo diet. Just steady grind, understand ups and downs, come along the way, but don't just, you know, white knuckle it for 3 weeks and then let go of the reins for 5, you know, which is,
that's what yo-yo dieting is. Yo-yo dieting isn't switching from one diet to another. It's switching from one diet to not having a diet.
Exactly.
And then going back and forth between that. So some people have been like, dude, why are you switching diets? Why are you talking about so many different diets? Why do you always have a different, you know, flavor? I just feel like it's like an evolution. I'm just trying to learn.
You're trying to take your particular fitness journey to the next level, right? I mean, like, ultimately, I know you don't like to talk about calories. I know that's not where you
calories are part of it, though.
Yeah.
They're a piece of the puzzle.
You've had me on less calories for almost 5 years now, and less calories are working.
Yep.
Right now, you're saying, hey, you've done less calories this way for like 2 or 3 years. Let's try less calories this way and see where this takes you.
And that's all that all of it is, less calories to some degree.
To some degree, right?
Right. Whether it's fasting or intermittent fasting or whatever way we're trying to figure it out. You got to eat less than you used to. Sorry, big boys out there.
It's so hard. It's so hard to do. But I've liked it, man. It's freedom. You say something like your normal person listening to you speak. Anytime you talk about meat, and you nailed it when you said this one, we always think about 80-20 ground beef.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
And we've all tried to do the vertical diet on 80-20 ground beef, which is not what was advised anywhere in that whole thing, right?
Stan Efferding is 33%, I think he says, on the fat.
Right. So you're like, hey, man, and you've always been pretty low fat. You just now going low fat.
Yeah, now I'm bringing it, really low, yeah.
Yeah. And I'm riding your wake, man, and I like it. And yeah, the scales, I mean, I'm having a great month with it. And I think I'm like down 6 or 7 pounds this month. For me, that's a great month.
Normally, and I think 30 pounds or 35 pounds for the year, right?
For the year, right? And so
that's awesome.
Yeah. I mean, I'm finding it's working. And also too, because like, I think I've said to you, or other people have said, you know, to say you're keto and to be keto are really different, you know? And there's so many times I really like efforted to give that the right shot.
Right.
But I always fell into a raisin and butter sandwich at the end of it.
And we'll get to some questions from you guys as well, but Russell and I are going to go back and forth for a bit. Let's talk about that for a second. You know, I just heard Cole saying something that I felt was really intelligent. He's like, it's so hard. Like, there's a reason why it's so hard for the body to be in a ketogenic state. And there's a reason why you crave sugar. So why not just feed ourselves some sugar? You know, I think what you mentioned earlier about they're all different versions of being on less calories, right? That is very true. And you're just trying to find how can I get the most comfortable with with this uncomfortable situation of figuring out how to eat less.
Right.
And a lot of the strategies work. Like, I want to make sure that people understand, I'm not saying Cole is like pretty pissed about keto and he's pretty pissed about low carb and he's all fired up, which is cool. It's his character or whatever. But for me, I'm not saying that those diets don't work. A lot of the low carb stuff, I think, it's been really pivotal for you. I think it's been pivotal for me. It's been working for a lot of people. There's a lot of people that have lost 50 pounds, 100 pounds. And there's a lot of people that will probably continue on those diets and continue to have some success. But what I want to try to work on and figure out is how do we, not only just like lose the weight, but how do we also, because I think I've seen in my own blood work some insulin resistance. I've seen my my fasted glucose be a little higher than it's supposed to be. And then some people are like, oh, that's just because you're keto. But is that just because I'm keto, or is that like not super healthy? And then we hear the same thing about cholesterol. People are like, oh, don't really worry about the cholesterol because you're not eating carbs and so forth. And you're like, I think there's probably some red flags in there somewhere. And I know there's ApoB, and I understand all that. We've had all the different people on the podcast talking about all these different things, but I think it's kind of foolish to maybe ignore some of these things. And so I'm taking a run at this, and I'm going to get some blood work done in the next couple of weeks here and kind of see what's going on. But I've been eating, a lot of carbohydrates, a lot of basically sugar-based things all throughout the day. And then the evening, I have a lean source of meat and some vegetables, and that's usually it for the day. Maybe a protein shake, and then I'm done, and I start over the next day. But the amount of carbohydrates I'm eating could be 300, 500, 700. It kind of just depends on the day with what I'm doing. And what I'm hopeful for is that this will positively impact and help my insulin and make me more sensitive to insulin. That's what I'm looking for, because I think that'll be a good driver of being able to manage my weight easier, because I'm trying to be 200 pounds, which is annoying because my body doesn't want to do it, but we're working on it. And so that's why I've kind of landed on this diet.
That's cool. So the only things that I've been just sort of bugging you offline with about it is, where does protein still sit with it? Because you've won me over with protein leveraging, right? The PE diet, right? And then like if you're if you're kind of a fatty, which you haven't been for a long time, and you're sitting in extra insulin already every day because because just of your obesity, which I've heard smart scientist people say that here or there on YouTube.
Yeah, your insulin, your fasted insulin will be a little higher,
right,
if you've been fat for a long time.
Right. So I mean, that's the pitch on keto, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're already sort of baking in insulin. You can't metabolize fat and have insulin in your blood at the same time. So, a guy like you're super lean, you probably don't have a lot of resting insulin, and then you're hammering the sugar and then burning it off fast. You're kind of training your body to burn it. How does it affect people with more unhealthy bodies that are carrying like higher body fat? I think that's an awesome question. And we also have heard that, so while we've heard that carbohydrates can cause some insulin resistance, we've also heard that saturated fat can cause insulin resistance. And I think really what's happening is, like, I don't think it's great to like just pick one side or the other too much. I think it's the influence of both that we have to really be careful of. I know that, again, there's people that are trying to do low carb, but I think some of those people are doing low carb to the tune of having still way too much saturated fat, and that saturated fat is having a negative influence on their on their situation. But I think most people that eat carbohydrates are still consuming maybe a little bit too much fat, especially those that are trying to diet, and they just haven't kind of learned some of these things. So I think you end up with I just call it a traffic jam. Mm-hmm.
You end up with a little bit of traffic jam of calories, traffic jam of fats and carbohydrates. Even those people that do keto and carnivore, it's really hard to adhere to. I know there's some that can be really disciplined to it, but they go off it. And then what do they eat when they go off it? They eat like ice cream, pizza, and so forth. And I think that's causing a lot of issues. I don't ever really want to dismiss a diet and say it's not sustainable, because who am I to say that a vegan diet or something like that isn't sustainable? I don't know. The person out there might have been on it for 15 years.
Mm-hmm.
And same with low carb.
Mm-hmm.
And same with somebody that wants to do like a low fat diet. So how does this diet impact someone that's heavy? I think it's going to shoot the alligator closest to the boat. It's going to take care of the main problem, which is your body weight. And we're trying to figure out how can we get you to weigh less, because I think 90% of most of the markers for your health come from weight loss. And I think it's regardless of kind of how you lost it. However, in this case, right. I think that what you and I have been talking about is, we know that we can train our feet. You and I both run into like foot problems here and there. We know that we can train our tibs from knees over toes.
Mm-hmm.
We know we can train, train the muscles around the knee to make the knee better. We know we can train even like our airway. Like people are chewing on like certain types of gum. People are doing mewing. People are trying to fix their airway so they can breathe better while they're sleeping. We know that we can like not just fix these things, but they're trainable. And then is our insulin sensitivity trainable? That's what I'm looking for. And that's what I think could be really huge in this movement. And, you're talking about Joe Rogan having Julian Michaels on there. Wait till Joe Rogan gets a load of this diet.
Right.
He's going to be like, what is this? I don't understand. It seems like a giant gimmick. It doesn't seem like it makes any sense. But what I would advise people to do is like, just kind of try it for a day. Just try it for a day. Like just mainly eat fruit for the day. In the evening, have a leanish piece of meat and maybe a potato or maybe some rice, and then just see how you feel from it.
As far as like the diet, now that because I mean, before I met you, I never, as I was kind of learning about health and fitness, I'd say like 10, 15 years ago, I started learning about protein, right? But I didn't know how much protein matters. And I wouldn't eat any protein anytime I tried dieting before. Now I've learned, and you're saying it doesn't have to be off the charts like we've been sort of like achieving for, but it still has to be significant, right? I have a very flexible diet right now. I wake up, I still have a cup of coffee with my smelly shake. Sorry. And then I had a smoothie yesterday, and then I kind of held off for a while. And then I had a little bit of late dinner because it's kind of a busy day, but I had chicken and rice. It was delicious. I threw a bunch of cherry tomatoes in there, a little ketchup because I'm, trailer trash. Anyways, and then I ended the night off with my dessert, with my low carb Greek yogurt, and it was delicious.
Who were they interviewing? The Are You Garbage guys? They were interviewing Tom Segura.
Okay.
And they went through a whole thing to try to figure out if he was trash or not. And he was passing with flying colors.
Yeah.
He was dominating. He was impeccable. He was clearly, from like a royal family. He was floating.
Dad was a stockbroker or something like that towards
the end. He was floating. He was so smart. He's bilingual, like all these different things he had going for him. And then I think what tripped him up was mayo.
Yeah, you've really hit me hard on that.
Yeah, I think it was like mayo, but it was like I think it even got worse. I think it was Miracle Whip.
Oh wow.
I think they said mayo or Miracle Whip, and he went Miracle Whip.
Wow.
And they were just like we don't even know what to do because you were passing the whole time.
Yeah.
But this is a fail.
Yeah, it really is. I had an uncle that liked Miracle Whip, and honestly, I never felt the same about him again once I found that out.
I
used to respect this man.
I dig mayo too, but Miracle Whip's a weird flavor.
It's got a little extra tang in there that you weren't expecting right off the rip.
What is that tang?
I don't know, man. Maybe vinegar. I don't know. Yeah, and I still stand on there's not an appropriate level of you cannot put enough mayonnaise in any form of tuna. It's dry. Chicken sandy, so dry. But I've drastically reduced my mayo. Thanks to your.
Some people try mustard. It's like that's not a good move.
That's really the only thing that you've shamed me on that I agree with.
Is the
mayo shaming?
Well, it's not so much just mayo shaming, but you were like, I made it through today without mayo. I was like, I didn't really know about this like mayo addiction. That would have been great
with anything.
It would have been a great place to start.
I'm white, Mark.
white is some mayo.
I
right?
like my mayo.
So back to the protein stuff. I think that there are people that kind of say 0.7 to 1 gram per pound of like body weight. Some people are saying per pound of lean tissue. Some people have different mathematical equations for the whole thing. I think that most of the time when we're talking about people that are training, people that are lifting, you've been an avid lifter for many, many years. And when you're lifting, you don't want your gains to disappear. You don't want to lose muscle mass.
And also if you're 50 too, I'm taking my age in consideration when I push back on you sometimes with that stuff. But you haven't really said just zero it out. You haven't said that at all.
No. I think I don't think there's any reason to really insanely mess with your protein too much. I think especially for somebody that is, going to potentially be hungrier if they're not consuming protein, but I would say it's worth playing around with. So here's what I'm learning. it is massively empowering not to be chasing down protein all day. I kind of didn't even like, because I've been so programmed to just eat protein all day, throw a scoop of protein in my, already protein yogurt, and throw this and make all these combinations of stuff. So I have 200 or 300 grams of protein every single day. Now it's just like, well, I had a lean source of meat with dinner. Like, all right, well, I should probably throw down a protein shake. I had a pretty good training session and so forth. So, I'll have some whey protein, or have a steak shake or something like that. But I'm not like hustling after it all day, and I'm not like chained to it. And then when you're not chained to it, I think that will also do that will help you massively to bring down the fat calories. So that way you're not just chewing on a piece of shrimp and you don't maybe even enjoy it, or you're not trying to eat tuna. You don't have to go out of your way to do that, because the lean meat that you select might not have to be insanely lean if that's the only meat that you ate for the day.
Right. Which is sort of kind of what I'm leaning on a little bit too, right? So, and also too, something I was thinking about, like our understanding of I'm not going, and you're not green lighting me to go just nuts on carbs. You're telling me, hey man, eat mostly fruit and vegetables.
Yeah, fat and fast with it. Like it's you and I've done intermittent fasting a bunch of times, and you and I have done like intermittent fake fast probably more often than not, where you have like a protein shake coffee thing in the morning, and then maybe you don't eat until like 2 or something, right? So this is a very similar thing, and you could still even have that. I would argue you could still even have some of that protein. There's going to be some people that get too crazy about it, but again, we're just after, especially for Russell, we're just after like some weight loss. These like magical cascades of like these hormonal things aren't always the most important thing. The most important thing is to keep the calories in check, and to keep you on a mission, to keep you from binging, to keep you from going sideways with the diet, really.
And I do kind of want to say, because listen, I know I'm in your comments. I know your audience, right? At least I know some of it. And in your audience has always been very loving and gracious to me, and I appreciate that very much. A lot of people are going to be like, hey man, or how about this? Or hey fatty, if you would just eat meat, this would all go away. You know what? Maybe so. Maybe so. I don't know. Probably right. Hey, I've efforted at that for years. I've been on that go keto carnivore train, and not keeping up and jumping on or staying on very long for like, Jesus, dude, like a decade now. And in the last 4 or 5 years, because you finally sort of showed me like some consistency with it, and helped me sort of rehab my body and get better at moving, and all that sort of stuff. I mean, I've had some success, at least being like higher protein, lower on the carbs sort of thing. So I'm not saying like that won't work or anything like that, but I think this will probably work too. And I mean, some of the stuff you brought up to me the other day, Mark, I drink so much coffee. I drink so much coffee. And part of that was, it was sort of derived from, I wasn't treating my sleep apnea very well, you know. So I started getting my sleep apnea taken care of, but still though,
it's good awareness. That's most of the time when I'm communicating with people, I'm trying to like draw awareness. I'm not necessarily saying this is bad. I'm not necessarily saying like, hey, this is sloppy, you need to get rid of this, you're a loser, or anything like that. And because we're friends,
for
but
sure.
I'm never trying to really say anything quite like that, even though I might say something and make it seem like it's the most important thing. I don't think cutting out coffee is like going to be this huge revelation for everybody, but examining how much caffeine you consume in a day, I think can be really smart, and just kind of paying attention, like, oh man, because I think you and I, we've done this before too, where we were drinking coffees maybe a couple years back, and then we were also having like a Monster, or we're having some sort of energy drink or something, right?
Yeah.
And so now you got like 300 milligrams of caffeine in the morning, and now you got an extra 300 milligrams like mid-afternoon. It's like, wait a second, what are we doing? And you got to kind of ask yourself, wait a second here, why am I so tired, and why do I need energy to come from these things? Couple cups of coffee in the morning sounds fairly reasonable. You want a little extra pick me up after the morning coffee and stuff. All that sounds reasonable. but just kind of like keeping an eye on it and making sure that you don't have to, that's not your only strategy for energy.
Yeah.
Those kind of things.
Right. And I'm not, and listen, man, I don't know the thresholds. I'm still like, I still think there's a lot of like question marks in my head about that whole like resting insulin stuff, you know, from being a fatty. And, but, you know, like yesterday I made just a fruit smoothie, you know, late morning, mid morning. And I take 2 drinks and my eyes go like this, right? I mean, like you light up a little
It's
bit.
delicious, right?
It was delicious, and it lit me up. I could just tell it lit me up. So, you know, the effort of not having that post lunch caffeine crash or all that stuff, you know, I have, you know, I have obligations I have to do from early to late, and I gotta the more in I am on my day, the better my outcomes are going to be on everything I care about. So having energy is, I mean, being less fat was the most important thing, but near after that, almost being less fat is for the outcome to have more energy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Does that
Yeah.
make
It's
sense?
like you need energy. And the other thing that we need to be aware of with you is that you don't exercise so much that you put yourself into a position where you have a lot of pain.
I mean, the man you had on, what was his name again, Ryan? The guy that was on today?
Dan John.
Wow.
Dan John, he's the man.
He's the man. He hit on that. And I was like, you know, he said something like, you know, your average personal trainer is dealing with these D1 athletes and like, hey, it's off season, coach. I'm going to go light today. I'm only going to top off at a 700 squat. Right.
Yeah.
I mean, I did 4 push-ups the other day with the slingshot and some body weight squats with a little bit of sandbag on me, and I'm so wrecked still, especially after we did like you know, the bag work and everything.
You and I will get excited and we'll end up working out for a long time.
I just don't have the wheels of a young man anymore. I made the mistake to
You've been working out with me though pretty good the last couple weekends.
I'm up on it
a lot.
And 2, I found a new tool today. I've been avoiding it because I just didn't want to get another trinket for the house. What are those called again?
Body lever.
There you go.
That body lever is amazing. It hits the ankle and the shin like nothing else. And I've bought a ton of little tools. Nothing else hits the ankles and the shin better than that thing that I've found so far.
When I discover some of these things, if some of these things do like one thing for me, I'm like, I'm in. Like even if it just does one kind of what I would consider maybe smallish thing, I just get so excited about it. Yeah. And that product, the body lever, is amazing, especially on the shins and the calves. And you're saying for yourself down on the ankle.
Yeah.
I've been able to get in on like the groin and the quad and stuff too. It's incredible. It's worth it.
I mean, the MFR, you sold me on MFR like 2 years ago.
Myofascial release.
There's just some space. That picture right there, go down a little bit, like kind of up a little bit, up 2, up 1 more, that. So sort of like that one. And I take it low into that. And I was just grabbing it and just sort of rolling it in down and then rolling it. Dude.
It can like pull the skin and stuff too. You can kind of get like a little burn going. It's really nice.
I told Ryan, I go, because I've been a little limpy poo since Wednesday, right? And I told Ryan, I don't know how long it's going to last, but this is the best my foot's felt in a long time. Like I'm pain free in my foot.
It was from throwing the punches.
Probably.
Is that what kind of got the feet maybe zapped? It's hard to tell sometimes, huh?
I mean, we did 16,000 steps together. Well, not together, but like last Wednesday.
Yeah.
That's big for me, dude.
Yeah.
That's a big day. And then I had a couple 9s and 12s since last Wednesday. My threshold at one point was
what an important thing to be aware of, is like you're aware that you're like moving into uncharted territory for yourself.
Yeah. And I think too, because I'm starting to get a little lighter and I'm starting to get a little bit stronger, I'm getting deeper into range of motions that I'm not used to yet. So I think I'm just like lighting up new areas of atrophy on me that I just have to deal with. And that's part of the journey of getting mobile again, which is what I want to do all this for. Right.
So for you, I just want to go back to that point. It's energy. We need to make sure your energy is good. And then we also need to make sure that there's some sort of like recoveries, like in mind, like it's front of mind basically all the time. Because if we set you off in the wrong direction, if I'm like, hey, why don't you come and like, do a run walk with me? It's like, that might not be a good idea for right now.
Yeah.
Like we just might need to like wait a little longer. Like there's no reason to really attack something that's going to have too much intensity, that all it's going to do is probably just set you back. Like, could we do it? And could we get like some video of it and have it be cool or whatever? It's like, yeah, probably.
Yeah.
But it's not really worth it. I was talking a little bit about, utilizing this opportunity, like eat carbs is like you're fasting. You're not necessarily fasting, but you're eating, sugar throughout the day. Like I was going to say earlier, is a lot of times somebody might have a coffee and then they might not eat until like 2. So you're doing something similar, except for you're just eating fruit. I mean, it's not really that much different. And the reason why I'm trying to say it like that is so that people don't really get the wrong idea that you're just like eating a bunch of cereal, that you're eating a bunch of candy. I did make a post because like sometimes I'm trying to just get people's attention. I did have some Sour Patch Kids, but I'm also like, I like Sour Patch Kids. I think they're dope, but like, I'm not going to eat so many of them. Like once I eat like 10 of those little things, I'm like, holy shit, like that's a lot. I ate a couple jelly beans and then I worked out with you on the weekend. And that was my like quote unquote breakfast. But I want to make sure that people understand that you're not just like trying to smash tons of extra energy for no reason.
Right.
What's the energy for? Are you about to do something? If you're not about to do anything, that's where you might use what you were talking about, protein leveraging. If you're not about to do anything and you're hungry, you could have fruit, you could have vegetables, or you could have a really lean source of protein. Just back to the protein just for a second, because I know that's where everyone like gets tripped up. I think because you're only going to basically be having like 1, maybe 2-ish meals in a day, I think it is a good idea for people to bring down their protein a bit, because as I mentioned earlier, it's going to make it easier to keep the fat down. But many people that are listening to this, and even yourself and myself, we've done 24-hour fasts. Some people have done 3 and 5 day fasts. Some people have done intermittent fasting for like a whole year. And they're not usually too concerned about the protein there. And we don't see a lot of people losing a lot of muscle mass on some of those things. So it might be a good idea just to not have your protein so cranked, like for yourself, maybe it doesn't need to be, I don't know what you were aiming for before.
275.
But yeah, anything above, that's a reasonable number. I think that's a reasonable number. How much lean tissue does someone have? It's really hard to say. Even if you get your body fat tested, it's still a little bit hard to really know like what's just lean muscle mass. And so I think that our numbers for protein are just a little skewed. And I don't think it's hurtful to have a little extra protein. But I think for yourself, if you're anything above 200, I don't think you're going to see like a lot of negative. 200 grams of protein is a lot, right? I think most people, I think we can all agree, 200 grams of protein is a good amount. So it's going to be rare for somebody to really like quote unquote need, more than that.
Yeah. And I think too, like on the other side, how much, not you, right? You move way more than anyone I know, right? But how much carbs do I really need? I don't need to say like, hey, good news, Mark. I had 2 smoothies and some carrots today, so I get to just go bananas on rice tonight, right? That's to carry me out, so I can just go medium
right
on rice tonight and know that I didn't throw myself off or go backwards, right? So I think probably a lot of people aren't. This isn't green lighting like 6 cups of rice for everybody a night. It's just green lighting, have some carbs, and it's okay. Still though, you keep advocating for me, it's probably different person to person. Hey, dude, lean on those fruits, lean on those vegetables, and then just make a game out of how lean of the meat can you go with. It's out there. There's very lean meat, easily accessible.
I think a lot of people are kind of like, oh, I don't really like vegetables that much, but just sort of just put your little thinking cap on and start to think about what vegetables you do like. Like maybe you just, every time vegetables are brought up, maybe you're thinking of broccoli and maybe just shit that you don't really like, but just hone in and focus on like, maybe even write it down. Just like write down what are your top 5 favorite vegetables. I know that a cucumber is actually a fruit, but pickles and cucumbers, you got onions, you got peppers. There's got to be something in there.
Right. So like I've even talked about this with my son, right? I know like my wife and I, we really like this Kirkland like vegetable melody. It's rad. It's got onions, it's got squash, it's got maybe I don't like onion, squash, different peppers in it. It's really
You
good.
cook that up with some meat, and it's a home run.
It's perfect. But my son doesn't like squash.
Ah,
So he doesn't like
pick it out.
he doesn't like that bag in the freezer, right? Also, too, a lot of fruits and vegetables do go bad if you don't use them. They will sit and die in your fridge. I like the frozen stuff in a lot of cases.
I get frozen a lot too.
But my son likes onions and peppers. So, like, okay, cool. So we'll make you your onions and peppers.
It's a huge win.
Enormous
peppers, vitamin C, potassium. I think onions have like prebiotic fibers in them and stuff. They're great.
Yeah, because I mean, left to left to his own like choices fully, because he's still a young man and still learning his nutritional habits and stuff like that. He'll just have a giant bowl of rice, and then he'll just have like a protein shake on the side. I'm like, I get it. I recognize that you are throwing in the protein on the top, trying to, like, you're addressing that side of it, but like, hey, let's cut back that rice. Let's find some veggies you can tolerate, and let's work in some real lean meat in there too, right? So
it's so awesome being a kid. And I know your son is getting older, but like, think about like when you're like a little kid.
Yeah.
Your brain disassociates with consequences.
Yeah.
So you're like, I'm going to eat, and you just get this big old bowl of like whatever it might be when you're like 7 or 8 or 9 or something.
It feels free.
And then like video games and stuff like that, like you're just down, or even just something dangerous. Like you jump off the picnic table, where it's like when you're 40, you're looking at, jumping down, you're like, you might turn backwards and like put your foot down on the seat of the picnic table and then like go down super slowly, right? When you're young, you're not really thinking of any consequences. But yeah, find some shit that you like, find some vegetables that you like, find some fruit that you like. I've also been drinking some apple juice and stuff like that. And I'm trying to play with all this stuff. Like I'm trying to see like if I have apple juice around and I drink it quite a bit, is the scale still going to go down? Like if it's not going down, then I need to just get rid of it. I need to drink it and then don't buy it again for a while and just continue to kind of see like what is actually getting results and what is getting results for me. I've heard other people talk about how for some reason they think that dates slow them down for some reason with their weight loss, because there's something called the honey diet, which you can kind of look up. And I forget what the guy's name, Biology, his name might be, on YouTube. He's an anonymous person. So I watched this podcast and I was like, these guys' lips aren't moving. Who the hell's talking? I was so confused.
Weird.
Because they didn't intro it at all. They weren't like, hey, this guy's off screen and you're not going to see him. But this guy has a lot of interesting information on the honey diet. He's the one where I heard him say that the body will produce FGF21. And when it does that, it helps kind of kick the metabolism into high gear. I guess they've done some studies on some rats and stuff like this. This is not my strong suit. I try to always say that every time when it comes to the science and the X's and O's of some of this stuff. I might be a little lost, so someone can pick it apart, and maybe you guys know more than I do. But the idea of is that it can help improve your insulin sensitivity. And they've done some studies in rats where they just fed them enormous amounts of sugar, and they just couldn't gain weight. And they tried to figure out how are they not gaining weight? This doesn't make any sense. They should be gaining weight because they're over their calories. They weren't able to gain any weight, and they think it's because of FGF21 for whatever the hell that's worth.
Yeah. And, sort of thinking just about like the whole thing, like zooming back out to like so many people that are fans of yours, or so many people that you've coached over online and stuff like that. Like they know that they should be doing something right, but they're still going to be eating pizza and tacos. Like, you talked about like that point that you made, and maybe, who's the guy, the other, not Cole, but the other guy you've been talking about,
Durian Ryder.
I think I heard him talk about in that video that you sent me. I think I heard him talk about like the standard American diet is so fat. It's so fat. And all of a sudden we just sort of like ignored that side of the problem too, because I think probably everyone tried doing low fat and were like me, just didn't know that you need protein to go with it a little bit too, at least to some level of reasonableness. And we were all just hammering rice and broccoli and a little bit of chicken and, versus pizza, versus spaghetti versus a Big Mac and French fries versus, you know, this and that. Like, people are going to find, if they just find a way to get off of that diet, find any diet if you have to. But also right now, Smelly's on the war on fat,
Right.
right? And the war on fat does work. And it's a good opportunity to jump on the war on fat if that's what you want to do. Just find something. And it kind of goes to what you're saying, like, you know, do you need to weigh in? I think if you're being honest with yourself, you probably don't need to weigh your food. I probably don't need to, like, it does not matter how many onions and peppers I have. I probably do need to weigh my rice, Mark. I probably do. I probably need to have that half cup of dry rice and go, hey, listen, dude, don't lie to yourself, right? But your grander thing of just weigh yourself every day is what you're doing working. And you'll know within a couple of weeks the perfect method is. But then in practice, we're all just, you know, flying blind and just going to our health demise. You know what I mean?
There is fat in everything. So really pay attention. This diet is really empowering. Because you can use teriyaki sauce, you can use barbecue, like you can use real barbecue sauce. Go ahead and go back to buying the real ketchup. Like you can do all these things, but just make sure, like, not just look at the label, because the label might lie to you a little bit. It might say, you know, tablespoon or whatever, and it's 0 fat. Make sure there's no oil in there, just a little stuff like that. Cause it's like, again, I know it sounds very nitpicky, but at the end of the day, it adds up. And for me, I don't want my fat calories to come from anything other than mainly that meat that I'm going to have. You know, that's where I want so that way I can have something that has a little bit of something to it, rather than just being like some 0 fat, you know, chunk of tuna or something like that. Would be kind of disgusting, right? So, you know, pay attention to all the different things that you're eating. Really look over the food labels. But what I'm finding with this diet so far, and I've gotten locked in on other diets before where I'm like, oh, I don't really care that much about. I'll always care about pizza. I'll always care about a burrito. I care less about ice cream, which is interesting because I always loved ice cream. But I think because of what I'm eating right now, everything's so many of the things I'm eating are so sweet. It's like kind of the last thing on my mind. And I'm even enjoying some sorbet here and there. Those are delicious. They're different. It's not Ben and Jerry's. It's not, you know, Tonight Dough, but it's awesome. It's really good. There's a lot of good pop in it. And you have to try to find some of the things that are going to hit your taste buds the way that you need. When you came over the house a couple days ago, Andy made something and you're like, oh, that did it. You're like, that scratched the fat guy itch.
Oh, immediately. Enough that I asked for a second slice, which I don't.
Oh, like. Yeah, it was what bread? Like a banana bread.
It was like banana bread, but there was very little banana. It had I think it had cottage cheese in it. It had a
steak shake, a banana steak shake, I think, an egg, and I think some cottage cheese.
Cool. That was,
and some like Lily's chocolate chips.
That was incredible. Yeah, that was really, really good. And I bet you, because I only had 2 slices and I didn't just kill that whole loaf that she cooked, it didn't throw me off or anything like that, right?
And you know, you can turn this into a hobby. You know, I know it's very time consuming, but you can turn it into a hobby. I think every day. I think for you, what I'm seeing in you, and what I'm seeing in you more recently, is that, and you've been doing this for a while, but you're even more diligent about it now. And it probably because of your kids and your wife and stuff too, because you're cooking and you're not just cooking for yourself. You know, you're thinking about everybody else and cooking a little extra for everybody, which is great. But I don't think there's a day that goes by where you're like, oh, I forgot my.
But when
that's like the ultimate fat guy move. Oh, I forgot to, you know, but you seem like you're on top of it pretty damn good.
I mean, well, when I'm losing weight, I'm thawing my frozen meat, right? And when I'm not thawing my frozen meat, I'm probably not losing weight, man. It just, I was just so inept at cooking. I mean, like, I was so inept at just keeping protein in my house, ready to go, ready for family that they would just assume just to have cheese and pasta. They would just assume just to have rice and cheese and you know, like I have to go, no, but look over here.
Yeah, and you don't do it by, you know, yelling and by having a big family meeting. This family's going to start to eat different. We're going to have meat and vegetables. You do it by showing options.
Yeah.
Oh, look, we have these other options, and these options can be very healthy. And you know, like your kid starts to get interested in girls and so on, like, you know, they start to get a certain age. They don't, they're like, yeah, it'd be great if this was slim, right?
Yeah, and I wonder like what percentage of families don't operate on that, on what I would call banker's hours, right?
Hmm.
Like, my wife works third shift, right? She's a nurse at the hospital, so she clocks into work at 11 at night.
Oh, wow.
So you know what I mean? Like, for us to have moments, for her to have, for her to be prepped and stuff like
Mhm.
that, it just makes a huge difference. Both of my kids are super finicky, and I've learned that they can make the sides if I can just have them that base form of meat. I'll let them. One kid likes rice, one kid likes pasta. Fine, you cook a little
Mhm.
bit of rice, you cook a little pasta. I do police, like, did you use your scoop, right? Because I
Right.
just learned, it's just because I've seen them both, like, when I don't police it at all, it's just the bowls just get bigger and bigger and bigger, right? So I
Right.
police, like, hey, did you scoop it
Yeah.
before you cook that, and all that sort of stuff. But I when I'm doing well, I am very, like, intentional
Mhm.
about my meat prep. The food prep's gone too far for me. I don't have the ability to manage the Tupperware and have everybody their little bowl
Oh,
of,
yeah.
and some people, they live off of
That
that. And
escaped me too.
it's, hey, listen, if that's the tool that works for you, go for it.
And you can do it, then great.
The tool that works for me is, last night I was Traegering a couple packs of chicken,
That's great.
and it was ready. Came in, everybody got their own little side. It's sitting in my fridge. That's what works for me.
And not everything has to be such a huge change. You and I talked about, like, chicken thigh, chicken breast. Like, hey, the chicken breast is going to be a better option, but why not buy just half, half and half? Buy half chicken breast, half chicken thigh. End up eating both of them. You know what I mean? Small changes. And then if you want to get, you want better results faster, then you start to
Yeah.
lean towards the leaner stuff.
Right. And I don't think it necessarily every meal has to be 50-50. I'll cook a pack of thighs, we'll run through those thighs, and I'll cook a pack or two of chicken, we'll
Yeah.
run through that. It doesn't have to be like every single bite that goes
Right.
into your mouth is perfectly
Right,
balanced,
right,
right?
right,
You
right.
can split it out, but over the course of the week,
Mhm.
in the month, how did it break down for you? And I feel pretty good like that. And I haven't given up on beef either, just so you know. Still love beef. I just was on beef for so long.
Mhm.
I'm just sort of enjoying just sort of breathing, just again, like, oh, this other stuff's really delicious too. So
I dig it.
yeah.
Ryan, we got some questions over there.
Yes, we do. BT wants to know why you can't eat carbs and fats in the same meal.
You can. You certainly can. You can eat carbs and fats in the same meal. And I would say I do every night, because the dinner that I'll have, might be chicken, or it might be something. There's going to be some fat in there. And there's going to be, carbs, but the fats are just going to be really low. Carbohydrates and fats together, there is something called, like, the Randall cycle, and you can try to look all that stuff up and learn more about it. The Randall cycle kind of refers to this traffic jam of energy, and it makes it more difficult for your body to be in, like, a fat burning state when you're eating those two things together. But really, that aside, the main issue with did you bring it up, Ryan?
Yep. You want me to define it?
Yeah, sure.
It says the Randall cycle describes the reciprocal relationship between fatty acid and glucose oxidation in the body. When fatty acids are abundant, they inhibit glucose utilization, and conversely, when the glucose is abundant, it inhibits fatty acid utilization. The cycle is crucial for maintaining energy homeostasis and ensures that the body prioritizes the most readily available fuel source.
And so that right there, I mean, kind of sums up, being on this diet. It's the fatty acids. And I mentioned this before, that some people think that if diabetes was discovered today, they wouldn't have called it a glucose issue. They'd call it a fatty acid issue, which is just mind boggling, because you're like, wait a second, there's no way that can't be true. There's the doctor that differentiated between type 1 and type 2 diabetes, is a guy that felt that diabetes could be cured via a really low fat diet. His speculation was the same as kind of what it says there in the Randall cycle, is that the fatty acids are causing a little bit more of the problem. I think it's pretty obvious. Like, it's kind of like the human body is amazing, because we're built for survival, and we're built to reproduce. And so we can kind of run off of all kinds of different things, and we can be in all these different states. And it's clear that the body has a great ability to run off of fats, but it also is clear that the body wants to run off of glucose. It really, really does. It wants to run off glucose so bad that when you don't eat any carbs, that your glucose levels can actually be pretty high. Oftentimes, people's glucose levels are higher on a low carb diet than somebody that regularly eats carbohydrates. I know, it's like it's mind boggling in a lot of ways. And like it's really interesting. So I think that by continually hitting yourself with a little bit of glucose, a little bit of carbohydrate, all carbohydrates turn to glucose once they're inside of your body. Whether it's fructose or lactose or a starch, piece of bread, potato, rice, everything turns into glucose in the body. And again, I always just like to reference, like, if you want to learn more about this and you want to dive into like the details, please listen to someone like Lane Norton, who is so well versed in communicating about the X's and O's of the science. I'm not always amazing at that, but I do have a good understanding of basically just what's going on in general. And I have a better understanding of like what works. And I think that this diet can be something that really works really well for people. I think it can mitigate some of your hunger. I think it can mitigate some of your cravings. Not going to mitigate all of them. Like it's just not going to mitigate all of them. You walk by a pizza place, you just walked by a pizza place, right? I mean, it's going to register. It's not like you're not going to see the commercials on TV for yummy and delicious stuff, but you're also eating yummy and delicious stuff. And so you don't have to maybe think about it as much.
Yeah, I don't mind repeating. I've always eaten the same 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 foods my whole life. I don't need a super diverse menu. Maybe some people do. I think it's going to continue to be pretty easy for me to stay locked in. And in the past, I've sort of, I don't want to say shunned, but I've sort of steered away from like gamifying our diets that you put me on and stuff like that, just because like I was just very like worried about the whole yo-yo dieting.
It can be a great strategy. I guess it works for some people, the 30-day thing, the 60-day. Sometimes that clicks people over and turns them on to like doing something forever. So who are we to just say like, hey, it doesn't work?
For sure.
But I agree with you. Like, you and I have talked about that stuff before. Like, hey, let's do this by like October. And then we've talked about like, well, let's really not worry about it too much.
Right.
Who cares if it happens in October or December?
What does it matter? As I sit in front of you today, though, I at least I can say like, I can gamify like, okay, how low can I cruise those fat grams? Really like, okay, I'm making the choice. I'm going to get the Fairlife milk, right? I can either get their 2% or their fat free.
There's options in the store. Yeah.
There's options like this. So I'm gamifying it a little bit, right? I'm getting a kind of like easy points. I just dodged a couple easy grams.
And you're gamifying some of the steps and stuff. You're paying attention to the steps. Do you have a lower limit that you don't like to see on the steps?
Wow.
Kind of like a minimum ish, or you just kind of give yourself some reprieve there because you don't want to mess up your feet and stuff like that?
It really just sort of depends on what was hitting on before. I mean, I have to exist. I have to still deal with life and so forth. So sometimes I will see myself as low as 2,500 and I'll go, wow, that was a really low day.
Oh, okay. So just a good awareness. Yeah.
Like, good. Why? Is that, but then though, usually almost always, like then the next day I'm kind of back on track. Or I've had in the past where there's been in the past, especially when I was, at the old gym and just every day kind of hard charging it and just not respecting my steps boundaries. I would just knock myself out for 3 or 4 days at a time. Sometimes I haven't really been running into that. So yeah, I am sort of like you're saying, I'm sort of feeling like I can raise my thresholds with that a little bit right now. But the number in my head has been like 6,500 for a year or so. But now I'm feeling like, I can probably hold average 8,000 a day. And maybe that's going to be like we get together on the weekends and I'm just going to have 2 days that just blow out. And then, Monday or Tuesday, I kick back a little bit and use the body lever and my shins aren't killing me. And I go catch a bike ride that day. Right. So I can still move, but I don't necessarily want to like blow up my steps and go for a big long walk or something like that.
I think you do something really smart. Every time we train, you're always walking.
Yeah.
When we train like in between the sets, we'll still even be talking and you'll kind of be talking and walking and moving back and forth. So I think that's that's anybody interested in some weight loss. That is such, we could talk about like supersets and we can talk about all these things, but you're supersetting walking with your curls, with your lateral raises, with whatever exercise we're doing for the day. You always kind of like walk off and walk around.
I'm the only one that does that when I go to Planet Fitness. No one else is doing it, and everyone else should be doing it. And no judgment, judgment-free zone. And you're the one that told me to do that.
Yeah.
You told me that like almost immediately. So, and you were right.
And there's some old videos of me doing it at super training at one of the locations here out in West Sacramento, where I actually incorporated walking with a lot of movements. I would do, I called it a gun walk. I would do curls as I was walking. I would do overhead presses as I was walking. And that was some of my kind of initial like weight loss from being like, not necessarily even fat at that point. I was just big. I was just trying to go from like 270-ish down to like 240-ish. And so I was like, you know what? I just probably need extra movement. And I was paying attention to the walks. I was doing the 10-minute walks at the time, but I was like, well, I love lifting. Why don't I just incorporate some walking while I'm lifting?
Mm-hmm. I've known some people that have done that and have just gotten jacked doing that. Take long walks with some 12-pound or 15-pound dumbbells, and they'll go for a hike with dumbbells. Well, I mean, it's kind of like
for a stroll. Yeah.
It's kind of like who's that stud in Oregon? Keep hammering. He's got that rock.
Oh God, Cam Hanes.
Yeah.
What about his son running marathons in jeans?
You know what? Okay, Trent. No, what a stud, dude.
Yeah,
what a stud, man. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, he's unbelievable. His physique is crazy. He broke the pull-up record.
Yeah, like you think of him as this like ultra marathon or this marathon runner that does it in jeans and blows by everybody, but then he's also the guy that can do pull-ups for 24 hours and beat everyone's world record. What a unit right there, dude.
It's an interesting thing. Like so he has a lot of muscle. I mean, he has quite a bit of muscle, but he certainly doesn't look like a bodybuilder, right?
Right.
But I think that type of physique, I think, is probably what most people are after. Again, he's a little bit more on the jack side, but I would say even 20 pounds less muscle, I think that's the kind of physique that a lot of people are probably after, and they probably don't even really understand it or recognize it.
Yeah, I mean, we can't all be IFB. What's it
IFBB? Yeah,
we just can't be. I mean, yeah, this is attainable is an interesting word. I don't understand if attainable is. I don't think attainable is necessarily the right word compared to this.
Look at that running stride.
Yeah,
just chilling.
Impressive man right there.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, impressive man.
I hate him.
I do too a little bit.
He's incredible. I'm hoping to interview him at some point.
That'd be cool.
Had the opportunity to go up and run with his dad. That was pretty embarrassing.
When did you do that?
Just maybe like 3 or 4 years ago.
Okay.
Went to run up that hill that he runs, and this was before he carried the rock. Thank God, because that thing's like 75 pounds or something like that. But I mean, he just took off. I think I ran probably maybe 400 meters, and I was like, "Whoa, here's a shot of it."
Oh, look at you!
I think this might even be a shot of us maybe messing around. I can't remember if this is like an authentic shot.
Is that you?
Yeah, that's him.
That's him.
That's him. Yeah. It was me kind of playing around, but it basically looked something like this. He actually so it was cool. He said, "I'm just going to go at my normal pace." He's like, "You do whatever you can to get to the top."
Wow.
And it was tough for me. It was really tough. Casey Short did pretty good. He actually ran. I think Casey ran the whole thing. It's crazy. It's not that far from what I remember. And I say, not that far, but it's far because it's all uphill, but it's like a mile.
Yeah.
Which isn't like insane, but I could do that now. And I'd be able to run to the top of that. No problem.
I think we were talking about this maybe when we started, or maybe shortly before. We were talking about like, there are days when you're out to learn something.
Right.
You're out to learn something about yourself, about your mind, and about your strengths and capacities. And then there are days when you're just trying to manage and just train appropriately for what your long-term goals are. That must have been like one of those learn something about yourself days. You must have really went deep into the well that day, I would imagine.
Yeah. And I first, for whatever reason, since the time I was a kid, with running, ironically, I would, my legs would cramp up all the time. So when we were running, you can see how hard that is for me and how easy it was for him to pull back on that bow.
Crazy.
But yeah, running that hill, that's what I was
looking for it at the end.
That's what I was thinking the whole time. Is I was thinking like, my legs are going to cramp up, but Yeah, you learn to push through. But I think to your point, the one of the most important skills you could ever learn is kind of like when to push and when not to. There's certain days where you're going to feel good and it makes sense to push a little further and maybe even push beyond. Like maybe you do, maybe you do like those extra 3 reps or something, but a training partner says, "Hey, 5 more," and you're like, "Shit, okay."
Mm.
And maybe you do go for it. But there's also times where you don't even listen to the training partner. You just rack it. You just put it back because you don't always need to push yourself above and beyond. So the question again was, about carbs and fats. And I did say that you can eat them together. You're not going to turn into an elf or a rat or something like that. Nothing crazy is going to happen. But you do want to be careful with how you do that. I also want to point out, like I've mentioned before, I'm not demonizing any of the other diets. You can track your macros. You can track your calories. A lot of people do that very effectively. You can have protein, carbs, and fats in every single meal. A lot of people do that and they do it with great success, and they've been doing it for many, many years. So it's not like it doesn't work. However, usually somebody that is selecting to eat both of the macronutrients that are responsible for our energy, the carbohydrates and the fats, one or the other is going to be a little bit lower. They're either going to be eating a little bit more fat and a little less carbs, or they're going to be eating a little bit less fat and a little bit more carbs. In the case of someone like a bodybuilder, they might have, 50 grams of carbohydrate, maybe 100 grams of probably about 100 grams of carbohydrate in the morning. They're going to get through that meal with maybe 10 to 12 grams of fat, and it might have, 50 grams of protein, something like that. They're going to have, a bowl of oats and some orange juice, some egg whites, maybe with a egg yolk or 2 in there. That's their breakfast. And they're going to do that every single day. But most of their other meals are going to look almost identical to that. And if you do 5 to 6 meals a day with around 10 grams of fat in each meal, then you would end up with a reasonable amount of fat where you can still be able to lose body fat. You'd only be like 50, 60 grams of fat. For some bodybuilders, they might want even more fat than that, depending on where they're at in their training. But bodybuilders have kind of had it right the whole time, where they've been conscious of how much fat they're consuming and they're utilizing the carbohydrates for energy.
It'd be kind of hard to deny that they don't know what they're doing. They're masters of it.
Yeah, and there's natural bodybuilding as well, because I know a lot of people just want to point to the drugs. There's a lot of natural people that are doing it, that they're able to figure out a way to look awesome too. And almost always, except for Keto Brick, almost always it's through the manipulation of fats. But even with Robert Sykes, Keto Brick, he's still manipulating fats too, because his fats start, 300 grams, then it goes down to, 200, and it goes down to 100 or so as he gets closer to competition. So pretty much everybody that's stepping on a stage for some sort of bodybuilding or fitness thing is paying attention to how many fat grams they eat, which is it can be an annoying lifestyle sometimes, but it can be really effective in losing body fat. What's the next question, Ryan?
Okay, Carnivore Awakening asks, do you really think we evolved eating carbs and avoiding fat? For 2 million years, humans thrived on animal fats. It's the fuel for our brains, hormones, and cells. Why deny what built us?
That's really great conjecture. I like that a lot. Yeah, of course. We humans, like what we actually ate and stuff is kind of hard to truly know, but I think it does make some sense that we obviously ate meat, right? I think it makes some sense that food was scarce probably at times, but it wasn't until we had technology that we could really harvest large amounts of meat. And tech, I'm just talking about like a good bow and arrow, or a gun, like we need some sort of tech to be able to take down these massive animals. And I know even before we had, great tech, I know that we were able to do it with like a bow and arrow and stuff, but it probably few and far between that you would get these giant things of meat, probably few and far between that you'd be eating large amounts of fat continuously, day in and day out. I would agree with the statement for sure that is part of our evolution. And it seems like the human brain maybe got a little bit bigger at some point, and that could Sean Baker believes that is when we started to eat more meat. We started to get more vitamin E and vitamin K and so forth, and all the other nutrients from animals, and even eating liver, kidney, heart, spleen, pancreas, eyeballs, testicles, eating all those things. They probably were really pivotal. But if you were to look at how somebody ate, I don't know how many years you want to go back. Let's just hypothetically say let's just go back 300 years. I don't know where that puts us, but you go back around 300 years, the amount of fat calories that somebody ate in a given year is not going to be very high.
Yeah. And also too, like, to this guy's point though, we've been in an industrialized society for a long time right now. I mean,
so this is not our evolution.
This is not our evolution either, right? And sure, okay, maybe your way is slightly more perfect. Okay, I was eating Pizza Hut and fucking soft tacos for a decade and a half.
From soft tacos from where? Does Pizza Hut make soft tacos?
If you go to the right one.
Taco Bell?
They got the trifecta, the Pizza Hut, the KFC. Yeah, remember those? So I mean, yeah, maybe, but also too, there weren't like fruit trees. There weren't strawberries back then. There weren't oranges hanging from a tree somewhere, in the 1300s or
what do they call it? They call it low hanging fruit.
Low hanging fruit. I mean, that's had to have been out there too, right? So, I mean, we're trying to get a whole fucking society off of tater tots. I think that's probably a good idea, right? And I mean, you did the war on carbs, and I mean, if you ask me, you got less fat off of the war on carbs.
Oh, it worked, yeah, for sure.
So you're now trying to do something different.
Right.
You're starting this next chapter of your Smelly's becoming a sprinter. You're needing to downsize a little bit, and I mean, probably if you're maxing out on your Piedmontese beef every night, maybe it would be harder for you to downsize a little bit of the muscle that you're wanting to give up for your speed and endurance and all that sort of stuff. So, I mean, like, dude, if this guy's crushing it on tri-tip every night, well, who am I to say, like, oh, you're doing it wrong?
Right.
I don't think you're saying that either.
No. And I'm thinking too, like, I'm thinking of like, I have a lot of great mentors. I've learned so many things from so many great people, but I'm thinking of like John Wellborn. John Wellborn was big, and the paleo diet is kind of where a lot of my weight loss started in the beginning, from Rob Wolf's book, The Paleo Solution. But John Wellborn was a big fan for his athletes. John Wellborn played 9 years in the NFL. The absolute stud, 6'5", when he played, probably 325 pounds. Just an awesome, awesome guy, a specimen. I asked him, I was like, what was hard? Was it hard transitioning? It must have been hard either transitioning from high school to college, or was it hard to transition from, college to pro? He's like, none of it was hard. I was like, oh, okay.
Okay.
He's all right. I understand. I understand who we're talking to.
You're talking to, right?
Yeah. He's an absolute animal for whatever reason. He's always been, he's got some great gifts, and he's super smart. But he did the paleo diet, and he also was a fan of adding in like whole milk. And so, because he's talking to athletes, and he himself was an offensive lineman, he wants like almost over nutrition. He wants like a good abundance of nutrition. And the people that he's communicating this out to, and he would do seminars and stuff for CrossFit and stuff like that as well. He's talking to people with like really high energy outputs. These are people that are like literally, moving all day. And you did mention that I move all day, but I'm trying to do something really precise that's a little different than what John or some of these other people are doing. Like I'm still just trying to lose an extra like 10, 15 pounds. And then once I'm there, I'll be at that spot, and I will, I think most likely what I'm going to land on is carb cycling, because it makes the most sense. Why wouldn't I bring fat back in? As long as it's not continuing to make the scale go back up again, then I would probably bring some in slowly and sort of see, because I think with this diet, or really any other, you're trying to see like, how much fucking food can I actually eat and still be able to make the progress that I want.
And also too, right? I mean, like, I know that they're out there, and I know that it's possible, but I think like the universally accepted consensus is, if you're a runner, you need some carbs.
Oh yeah.
And you're running your ass off these days.
Yeah.
So, I mean, everyone's taking it like a personal like thing.
Right,
like, why aren't you doing the thing that, that I do, that you did, that worked for us? Well, because you're trying something different right now because you have different goals in mind.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what you said to me when we talked about the other day is you just get so much more energy for your training when you're taking appropriate levels of carbs and for how much you move and still me. I do have a question for you. A hard question. I mean, like you've won me over on Ted Naiman.
Oh yeah,
Have
protein
you
leveraging. He's a stud.
have you had? I mean, have you had any considerations? Have you shifted your opinion on that at all, or is this just like a different way to work within the boundaries of protein leveraging?
Uh, protein leveraging, just brief description of it, is basically what Ted Naiman has found, and other people have found this too. He's not the originator of it. He's just has taken and shed light on a lot of research and information that's already out there.
Sure.
Basically, by consuming more protein over time, you are going to start to drive down the overall amount of calories that you even really care about. So because protein is very satiating, it's supposed to be the most satiating of the macronutrients. Protein also doesn't really seem to count much in terms of like an energy source. You can kind of see protein almost similar to fiber. Fiber, like, people are always like, insoluble, soluble, but they're like, well, it doesn't usually count against your calories. Protein still counts against your calories, but it probably only has maybe about half the energy that it's assigned. It's assigned 4 calories per gram. But you could still protein leverage. I mean, protein leveraging is a part of this diet because you're still consuming protein. It's just that you might not be consuming as much.
Right.
And for someone that might be hungry, like, I don't think it's going to hurt anything to maybe eat a little extra protein. For now, I'm trying to follow this diet. In a particular fashion so I can see what's working. Supposedly, from the honey diet guy, he basically feels that you want the fats completely sunk down to 0 and you want the protein completely sunk down to 0 until later in the day.
Oh.
So he wants you to kind of keep it separate. I don't know how important that is, but I'm trying to find that. I'm trying to figure that out and see how that fits me. Again, you're not going to turn into a fucking lizard from eating some protein in the morning,
Right.
but I'm just experimenting with trying to do it the way that I heard this guy talk about it. Again, in reference to the FGF21. I don't know how important that is. I don't know if anybody knows how important that is.
What's FGF21 do?
FGF21 is supposed to be like a regulator. Maybe Ryan could look it up. A regulator of your insulin, your metabolism, and so forth.
Yeah, it says FGF21 or fibroblast growth 21 is a hormone that plays a crucial role in regulating energy metabolism and has been linked to various metabolic benefits. It's primarily produced in the liver and plays a role in glucose and lipid homeostasis. Studies suggest FGF21 can improve insulin sensitivity, reduce body weight, and even potentially increase lifespan.
I hit up some of my friends that own like peptide companies. I'm like, dude, make something that makes something that does something with FGF21.
Yeah.
Sounds like if we just raise that bastard up, we can be doing really well.
Makes sense.
Something that we didn't mention, but Russell and I are both on steroids.
Oh yeah.
We should have maybe started with that.
That's a good point.
No, I Russell, you pointed out to me recently. It's always a good reminder for me to mention it to the people that are listening, because it is a factor, right? It's people that might follow the diet. They might have different experiences. They might have different results, and my results are going to be my results for my particular reasons. And I just try to always put that forward, that I use TRT. I think I'm in a reasonable TRT dosage. However, I might be more in the sports TRT category, because I oftentimes will take something other than just testosterone. I've mentioned those things before. I don't want to say it here right now, just because I don't want to get demonetized, because sometimes that shit happens. But you guys heard me talk about it before, so hopefully you kind of remember some of that.
Yeah, and and I was just thinking, honestly, dude, even just thank you for bringing this up, because I never know how or get enough opportunity to thank the Whitmers, and they've been helping me with my HRT for
what a great family, yeah,
for 3 years now, and they've helped me with. I take I take a pretty reasonable dose of testosterone every week. It's like 185 or something like that of the Cypionate or whatever it's called. My wife's a nurse, so I don't have to pay attention to it. They've had me on semaglutide for a couple of years now, DHEA and thyroid, and I've kind of been needing a place to just sort of like appropriately say, I kept having little birdies on my shoulders whispering, you really should try this little bottle of this thing that burn victims have used in the past. And I did stumble across a bottle of that a few months ago, and it whacked all my blood work off, and I stopped taking it after like a few weeks. I just sort of had the Whitmers had me on my normal blood testing path. I take it. Dr. Whitmer calls me and he's like, we need to talk. How come your blood work's been looking great for 2 years and it just looks so jacked up today? And I was like, oh, okay. So I haven't taken that for weeks now. So, but I have been taking the testosterone for years now, and a pretty normal HRT dose, nothing crazy. Promise. Wait, no, I promise. And no, seriously. And it's been, I think, life-changing. I think the energy, the drives that it got better, the ability that I can not always be afraid. Did I leave my garage door open? Is my water faucet going? Like it helped me a lot. And I think the war on fat and a shot of HRT, shot of testosterone would help a lot of men out there. I know we're not trying
shot in the arm.
I'm not trying to advocate people do things that are unnecessary, but man, it made a big difference for me. I know it did. I just know it did.
Well, and having somebody analyze your blood work, it's like you start your journey and you're quite a bit heavier than you are right now, and you're like, well, I already know what the outside looks like, but let me take a look on the inside. How healthy or how unhealthy am I? And looking at those health markers, talk about gamifying something. That's kind of great. It's kind of amazing when you do get your health markers. This podcast is sponsored by Merrick Health, and when I get my blood work done, I kind of like want to make those guys proud. I want to make those guys be like, oh, wow, like he's actually paying attention to some of the shit that we're recommending to him. Yeah. He's actually doing some of it. And then every once in a while they'll say, hey, like, we know you're not on the up and up over here. Like, what's going on with this? The blood work will be a little bit off, and you just continue to work on it. But it's showing you something that it's different than just looking at your own body. It's different than just weighing yourself. Those are things that could be very personal, and they could feel very personal. And you weigh yourself and you're like, fuck, man, I'm heavier than I want to be. And like, I'm in a bad spot and I shouldn't be here and I should be there and and you can do all that. But with the health markers and you could kind of have a fit about those too, but it's just different because it's so black and white. It's like, here's what's actually happening on the inside. And then when you start to sleep a little bit better, and you start to exercise, and you start to go on a couple walks, and you do this, and this, you get the blood work back, and you look at it and you go, holy shit, like all this extra effort, it's worth something, because it's fixing things.
And it did. I went clearly off the charts on too much cholesterol, too much triglycerides, too much, not enough testosterone. I mean, I could go by line by line. It would be things got noticeably better over the course of about a year and a half. I got pretty much in line with just about everything. And I mean, I was on the path to an early demise. I really was. And I wasn't unaware of it either. I just was at the moment incapable of repeating the right behavior enough times to make a difference. And I kept sliding into just your standard American diet. So then again, like, I don't want people to, man, people don't have to go, well, but isn't this just a little bit better than that? Hey, man, do what's working for you. But if you're lost, if you're stuck and you just keep getting drive-through and you keep throwing pizzas in the oven 4 times a week and all that sort of stuff like I was and like my family was, try this out. Try the war on fat out. I mean, if you're a war on carbs, if that's your path, if that's what works for you, if you're still losing the weight, like, I mean, like, I know you're trimming off a little bit, but dude, you've lost like 130 pounds or something like that. I don't believe that's not, the war on carbs had something to do with that.
It did. Yeah,
for sure. So, no one needs to be so dogma about what they put in their body. Clearly, there's a lot of like,
this diet's just another option.
That's what I think. Yeah. And that's what I'm giving it a try. I haven't said, oh, I'm never going to go low carb again. I wasn't even really great low carb to begin with, like I've told you 100 times, but I feel pretty on track. I said to you this, I think in a text last night, I go, I think I can play this game.
Yeah.
I think I can play this game, and I'm going to go for it a little bit.
I love it. Ryan, you've been messing with this a little bit too, right?
Yeah, a little bit. Just for a few days now, but yeah, I'm liking it so far. I feel like I have more energy, and definitely the runs have been feeling a little bit better lately. So I feel like I've had more energy. I feel like I've been able to run for a little bit longer. Runs felt great before on just like a keto style diet, but it does feel like I have a little bit more of a boost.
Yeah, and that's the same with myself. Like the workouts felt great before. I always felt like I was doing well with my workouts, but it's like you get to that like middle part of the workout, like Ryan, the exercise we were doing the other day, we were doing the ski erg and the mountain climber thing, and then we were like doing farmers carries. Like that got to be pretty hard at a certain point, and like rather than being like, oh, like I'm pretty like exhausted, I think this is the end. It's kind of like, fuck yeah, like this is right where I want to be in the workout. And then you finish off, and you finish off maybe a little stronger. That's kind of what I've been feeling. I feel like I finish off a little stronger than I was maybe in the past.
Yeah, same. Yeah, I feel like I have maybe just like an extra 10% capacity when it comes to cardio.
Big deal.
Yeah.
What else we got?
Steve Baum wants to know how many grams of fat you're eating per day.
I'm trying to keep it like under 30. And I think I think whenever you move to a new plan, give yourself some grace, give yourself some time. Maybe you didn't even buy all the right stuff yet and everything like that. So
Good point.
yeah, give yourself some grace, give yourself some time. I think it takes like 2 weeks to kind of like get your footing and
Kind of learn how to do it, right?
Learn how to do it and read the food labels. And I know that a lot of you have been reading food labels and stuff probably for a long time. So it's not like you don't know about some of these things, but it's new and different. And so you're trying to learn it. But yeah, the simple answer on that one is I'm trying to keep it under 30. And I think for most days, I've been pretty good with that.
Okay, looking for another question. Give me a second.
Russell, are you looking at the fat grams a lot, or like how are you kind of managing some of that?
Well, like I know some staples of stuff I don't have to worry about, right? I don't have to worry about fruit. I don't have to worry about vegetables. I don't have to worry about the brand of Greek yogurt I'm buying. So, like, I don't have to worry about rice. I don't have to worry about orange juice. Like,
Those are all opportunities to eat stuff that's fat free.
It's just covered. It's just free food, and not free. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, then I mean, yeah, I'm not getting my tri-tip or my 80-20, ground beef right now. I'm making leaner choices. Even to really just drive all the way in, even that 93.7 ground beef or ground turkey still, for where you're trying to go. Mark, I'm trying to be like around 60 grams of fat right now, like 60, 65.
Great.
It's been pretty easy. I mean, I haven't even really added it up. I just know with like kind of like what you do with your whole food philosophy. You're just so like your limitations are on the choice of what you're eating. So you don't have to really like pick at the particular count so much. So I'm kind of doing that.
And that's exactly what I've done too. Cause like I'm eating some shrimp, I'm eating some scallops.
Yeah, shrimp's great.
I haven't really eaten much chicken breast, even though I like chicken breast. I haven't even cooked it up in a while. I have, access to the, Piedmontese steaks and stuff, and they have hardly any fat in them. Even some cod and stuff like that. I know some people don't like fish, and that's fine. You don't have, like, I think that sometimes when people hear certain things like, oh, that's not for me, I can't do that because I don't want to have to do that. There's really not a lot of have tos here. The only have to, I think, that I would suggest and recommend to people is really strongly consider just looking at your fats and lowering them if you've been stuck.
Yeah.
And that's it. Like, that's a great place to start.
Okay. Tell me your fish. How do you store it? How do you prep it? How do you keep it from, salmonella or whatever going bad in 10 minutes in your fridge? Like, what's your process for dealing with the fish?
Yeah. So I have, shrimp and I have scallops. So sometimes I'll actually I'll go to Safeway and I'll just buy, they have shrimp cocktail there.
Yeah.
And I buy like, some really hot cocktail sauce, like my favorite thing. And that's delicious. And that's very, very low fat. Again, always check your sauces, make sure they don't have oil in them. I'll also just buy frozen shrimp and I buy frozen scallops. I just buy frozen stuff. It's just way easier.
Frozen fish too?
Yeah.
How do you prepare it?
So with cod, I've been just like literally just cooking it. I think I've cooked it in the air fryer once, but I cook it in a pan and I just undercook it.
So you put it frozen in the pan, or are you
Oh
thawing it
no.
first?
I leave it out and let it thaw.
How
Yeah.
long are you thawing it for?
It's just
Overnight, kind of.
yeah, sometimes it might be overnight
Sure.
or sometimes it might be 3-4 hours, something like that.
Okay.
But
But you're getting it frozen.
yeah.
You're not worried about getting it fresh and having it spoil on the drive home or anything like that.
I would love to get it fresh, but it's just more complicated. I used to buy salmon every once in a while, like fresh, and it's like got bones in it and shit. And then it was like too much of a hassle.
Yeah.
Cod, I find, and shrimp and scallops, they have a smell to them, but like they're not as offensive as like you cooking up like a big old salmon or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So they make the whole house, stink like fish basically. But cod is like, what will happen when you're cooking cod is like it will almost start to some water comes out of it and it will start to almost like boil itself a little bit.
Right.
And it's like a little flaky, but not dry.
Yeah.
But you have to kind of undercook it. The other thing you can do is if you throw that in do you have a wok?
I haven't had a wok in a long time.
Yeah. So we have a wok, but any pan will work. But if you throw it in, if you cook a bunch of vegetables,
yeah,
and then you just kind of you throw that in with it,
mm-hmm.
That works really well because then it gets like steamed.
Yeah. So like if you look at my house right now, my wife's really, and they're kind of serendipitous. We're kind of similar paths right now. She's really into smoothies right now, and she's making like these really cool fruit smoothies left and right.
That's great.
Which is cool. So like half of our fridge is just, well, like the whole top is just me hogging space for yogurt, and then I have issues, and then there's like tons of like spinach and all her stuff that she's doing, all the berries we got in the fridge. But then I have a metal tray of chicken right now that's cooked, and then underneath that metal tray I have a plastic Tupperware of chicken thawing right now.
Nice.
Right. So, I can alternate, right? Maybe it's just like, once a week I put in tomorrow's cook. I'll just put that Tupperware will just be like, maybe like you said, some cod or something like that. I'll try it. I'll let you know how it goes. I need to stop being such a baby about that and give it a shot because any fish with lemon juice on it tastes pretty dang good.
Yeah.
So I can give it a try. It's the cooking and it's the procedures.
Mm-hmm.
I'm unfamiliar and a little nervous about the procedures with fish. And I imagine a lot of people are.
I think some people also put it in like, and I don't know like if this is bad because like the metals or whatever but some people like put it in like foil, like tin foil, and they'll put it like on a barbecue or they'll throw it in like an air fryer. Mm-hmm. Air fryer, could be a really easy option. I think the last time I used the air fryer, I think I overcooked it a little bit, and that just gets to be tough to eat. But again, like I'm eating other stuff, so when you get to eat rice with stuff, it really changes the game. You get to eat rice and you get to eat some vegetables.
That's true.
It's like it just makes it so much more palatable. To me, cod is like it just doesn't have a lot of flavor to it. But again, like I want to make sure people understand, like you don't have to do these things, but they're good things to try and explore because who knows, maybe that's just another thing that you learned that you like that you can eat. And cod like has hardly any fat in it. I think Ryan, if you could check out Jay Campbell's Instagram for a second. Something just clicked in my head about testosterone. Jay Campbell recently said on his Instagram, he was talking to another guy about, TRT and testosterone and they got in a conversation about how his brain is faster than someone that's not on testosterone. And I was like, that's really interesting and really cool. And he just said, hey, it's just a fact. Like when you take testosterone, it does these like certain things for you. I'm not sure which video it would be. Maybe scroll back up.
I need to follow this guy.
It's towards the top. Yeah. Anyway, I just wanted to bring that up because as you were saying, Russell, testosterone, it does so much for us. And years ago, somebody made a comment on my YouTube channel. I was like running and lifting and they were like, oh, well, it's easier for you because you're on steroids. And at first I was a little bit like, oh, that's kind of rude. And I was like, oh, wait a second. That's actually true. It is easier for me because I'm on steroids. And I thought about how motivating they are. I think that's something that gets lost sometimes. We don't really understand that testosterone especially testosterone, can be very, very motivating. And it could just make you want to do the thing, make you want to exercise, make you want to go and kind of kill the day, so to speak.
Yeah. It was there was some changes that were overnight for me, and other things that have just taken time, right? And also too, like, I'm on which I don't know, it's probably a topic for a different day, but I've also been on semaglutide for a couple of years now, and I know that's made a difference, right? I don't have that empty, like, bottomless tummy feel like I had before, which how I used to have real big problems, and I still bump up against it sometimes, with just like what I've come to call appetite eating, where I'm not really eating because I'm hungry. I'm eating because I'm emotional, or I'm experiencing ritual, right? And it's house is empty, kids went with mom to see grandma and grandpa. Well, that just means that Mountain Mike's just got a little richer tonight. I'm gonna go get some Mountain Mike's and just, make an absolute pig of myself. And I haven't done that in years now, which is great. And I imagine that semaglutide is playing a role in that. And eventually I'll have to have this conversation of just start backing off of that, and just going without the safety rails with that again.
Last year, you didn't lose much weight. You lost a little bit, right?
Like, I think 10 pounds the whole year.
I mean, but the good news is that you lost 10 pounds.
Yeah.
It was slower than in some of the other years, and it's been slower than this year for sure, because you're flying this year. But also you didn't gain weight, and that's something that's like, it's really important. It's like a lot of people just want to lose, but like let's say we're talking about like a 10-year span,
Right.
You were in the military in your 20s, right? And your 30s, you have kids and so forth. You end up experiencing like quite a bit of weight gain, but 40 to 50 is when you start to, or maybe mid 40s is where you start to really take care of the weight gain that you have. And 5-6 years goes by. Not every year is going to be perfect. Not every month is going to be like this great downward trend, like we talked about in the beginning. And so even if somebody just gets stuck and they just stay the same for a while, even though it might be really frustrating, it's important to know that you will start to lose weight again, but you might need to employ a little bit different strategy. You might need to, do some of the things I'm doing, do some of the things that you're doing in trying to continue to explore. Like, why not try a different diet? Why not try a different exercise routine? Because it's not necessarily, I think we could both agree here, is that it's not necessarily the diet. It's not necessarily the diet or a diet.
Right.
It's just some sort of adherence.
Right. Any diet works. The closet diet works.
Yeah.
Right. Most any diet works. Right. It's how long can you hold on to it? How long can you repeat it? Do you have, and you shouldn't be in this situation, but say you are, do you have a wedding that you're trying to get ready for in 6 weeks or
Ryan,
16 weeks?
Ryan's getting ready.
Hey, congratulations. Yeah.
Getting all jacked. He came over the other day and his shoulders were like, I was like, what the hell's going on with this guy?
I was past that.
I mean, he's always in good shape, but Jesus.
I was past like needing to like get ready for something. I had to do something that was sustainable. And also too, like, I took, I don't know what the right word, solace, comfort, excitement, joy. Really early into this, the scale stopped being like the best part about this. The non-scale victories and being able to move and being able to, wipe my butthole without the assistance of water,
me
or you. I miss those days.
Hey, everybody needs a good friend.
Anyways, so like I just haven't been I haven't been that concerned with weight loss for the sake
only
weight loss for the sake of weight loss. I mean, knowing I need to, knowing that I mean, I know, and it wasn't like I wasn't trying. I was letting a lot of things still get in the way. I was, I told you a while ago, I really didn't know how to diet. I really didn't know how to eat healthy. And it took a couple years just to sort of iron that out.
Apparently you were eating mayo every day.
Why can't I lose weight? It's keto. And then I said somewhere towards probably like fall of last year, I said, okay, well now you have to I feel like I kind of know what to do now. Now you have to sort of start focusing on, I can't just fold anytime it gets windy. You know, I can't just, anytime the rain and the wind comes, I can't just crumble like cardboard. I got to be able to stand up against these. When the appetite button starts ringing in my bell, I gotta, you know, be thoughtful. I gotta be mindful. I gotta reach out to a buddy. Gotta take a walk. Like for like the last 4 or 5 months, I've really like said, okay, dude, you have to start. I was a little bit more gracious, a lot more gracious with myself the last couple of years, because a lot of times I was just like, okay, well, I see where you made a mistake. Just be more prepared for tomorrow. Just, you know, no, not that big of a deal. Move on. You know, right now I'm starting to deal with, like, it's different conversation entirely, but I'm dealing with like, okay, well, what is the things that are just actually triggering those alarms in my head? I need to start processing some stuff in my own self, and then it'll be easier that way. But
it sounds like you did a good job of so far at least facing the peripheral, like the stuff that's maybe more on the surface.
I think you kind of have to.
Yeah.
You kind of, I think you're sort of setting yourself off. It's like going hiking without bringing any of the equipment, right? You gotta know what you're doing, right? So, and yeah, like you said, I mean, I've lost like 30 pounds this year. So, and I know that this change in diet has been part of it. And the other diet probably would have been fine too if my headspace was a little bit different. But the non-scale victories, once you start seeing yourself, like, you can fit into a shirt a size down, you can go for a longer walk, you can do more, you know, your back's not frying when you're doing dishes in your home, you know. I cannot advocate enough for find your non-scale victories. And if you're not having any non-scale victories, you know, question why. I think question why. So, yeah.
When you were talking about something earlier, you mentioned experiencing is the word you use. You said experiencing ritual, experiencing this, experiencing that. I just want to applaud you on saying that, because like that's a great way of looking at it. Like, oh, I'm in this experience. It's not like you didn't say, like, you know, maybe years ago you would have just said like, oh, you know, now it's time to party because like everyone's out of the house or whatever. But you said you're experiencing it, meaning to me that sounds like, oh, he's recognizing that he has control over it.
Yeah.
Because it's an experience, and you get to, within this experience, you get to kind of choose how you're going to proceed and how this experience is going to unfold.
Yes. And even like and that's what and you do have control. Like a lot of people only seem to know how to like talk about the control that we have.
Every once in a while you're like, how am I doing this again?
Yeah. You do have control.
How did this happen?
You do have control, but until we talked about the autopilot thing, you know, you're not paying attention, or you're distressed in the auto, you sort of, you know, your eyes sort of gloss back and you just start making stupid decisions again. Like, we can choose to have control in those moments. And that's something I'm working on. But I just sort of felt like I was so lost with okay, I'm in control, autopilot's off. What do I do? And I kind of didn't know. I mean, I eat less, move more. Sure. Okay. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, every coach. Thanks, every coach. You're right. Thank you. But I needed to kind of figure out what that means to me. So, yeah.
All right. Let's take a couple more questions. What we got?
Okay. Polish Mike asks, do you think it makes sense to do fat days when you don't exercise to keep the body guessing and sustain metabolic flexibility?
Maybe at some point, you know, maybe when you're like, maybe at the body weight that you'd like, or even just if you have like health concerns, you know, if you're very worried that like if you plummet your fats down too low, that might not be a bad idea. But I don't know about keeping the body guessing. You could be right. Maybe that would be an effective way of doing things. It could be almost like a cheat day, I guess you would say, type thing. I don't really have a big problem with that. It's just depending on who you're sharing the information with. Some people struggle with that more than others. Some people, you know, like back even years ago for myself, if you said, hey, have a cheat day, like it turned into like way too much. It turned into like not only a cheat meal, but turned into like a cheat day, turned into like a cheat like weekend, you know, and it just got to be way too much. And it was, not only was it way too much, but it was just super unhealthy. You know, when I look back on it, it's like it was very unhealthy, because it was just like, it wasn't like a whole day of just like, oh, just kind of be like a normal dude and eat a little bit of whatever. It was like, no, actually intentionally get as much junk in as you can, because you're not going to eat it for a while again. And that was the big mistake, because I'd stockpile, I'd grab everything, and I'd be like, okay, oh wait, let me get those peanut butter cups too. Oh wait, let me get, and it's just like, holy shit, man, that was not a good idea for me.
You would binge.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I mean, binging has been it's been so devastating in my life. So I've done so much harm to myself from binging. So that's also been something I've like, no more binging.
I think a lot of people struggle with it.
I think a lot of people,
millions of people, I think.
And I think most people struggle with it in total silence because they're still pretty young and they still kind of have that young man, young woman's athleticism. So they can kind of get away with a little bit, at least they think.
Still moving around quite a bit.
Still moving around, but they don't even realize the patterns and the belief systems that they're adopting. It's a low day, so it's a cheat day. It's a fun day. What's a fun day? Well, we're gonna start with this, and we're gonna have this. Like you said, you find yourself eating. It's Friday night. You find yourself eating all the trash, and now it's Saturday. Oh well, we got leftovers from last night. Oh hey, Saturday. Oh yay, we're still going on Saturday. Party's still going. So I've had to really get away from binging, and again, I'll fall back to maybe it has nothing to do with me. Maybe it's all from the semaglutide. Well, God bless semaglutide. Thank God for semaglutide, right? I believe that once I get down to my goal weight and it's time for me to back off of that, I will find success. I know it, actually. I actually know it.
We're only 90 pounds away, I think. Ish, right? 90, 95.
87 mark. No, it's something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know I did. As a guy that had, 200 plus to lose, to now go, okay, I'm actually now in 2 digits. It's kind of cool.
Kind of reminds me of like sobriety. Like, someone's like, I'm on my 300th day or something, or
you're only 10 pounds away.
Yeah. I'm only 10 pounds away. Yeah.
Is it true when they say the last 10's the hardest?
I guess so.
Huh? Yeah. To completely like rewrite your system for it.
Oh man, I know. It kind of reminds me of like when someone's like, oh, I've been 3 years sober. It's like, oh, let's have a drink.
Yeah.
Oh, wait.
Yeah, it really is a lot like
it's, you've lost 150 pounds. Let's go celebrate.
And as I was saying to a friend recently, like people find abstinence within food. Like there are, I don't eat after 4, or I don't eat before 4, or I don't eat bread, or I don't eat meat. Like people draw lines for abstinence. And if that works for you, then that works for you. And, if you're fit, your blood work's not destroyed, and you're enjoying your life. Who am I to step in the way and say, oh, you're doing it all wrong. You're doing it all wrong. No way.
Next question.
Matt OD says, what would likely happen if you alternate fat and carb days? Most people seem to suggest picking an energy source and sticking with it long term, but what would happen if you just keep switching?
Yeah, please reference the podcast that we had with John Heck. He did a great job explaining his favorite strategy for dieting. John is 6'7", 325 pounds, looks like an absolute mutant, looks like a freak. He looks incredible. And he coaches a lot of people. So reference a lot of his work. Check him out on our Power Project when you get an opportunity. Also, check out his Instagram, and he does a lot of great work. And that's carb cycling. Carb cycling can be amazing. It can be awesome. It seems to make a lot of sense.
You've said today that's what you plan on eventually transitioning to,
right?
Yeah.
And you and I were talking, Russell, and this gives you guys, the listeners, a way of seeing, how when you're talking about like a similar topic, how it can be just so different in one person's head versus another. Like you just mentioned, having a low day where you're going to eat like a bunch of junk food. And then like for me, I would be like, oh, if I'm going to be like lining up a bunch of junk food, I'm going to want to line up a good day of training.
Yeah.
So you and I have even talked about things like that before too.
And you've brought me over to a health, and I think your way is a healthier mindset. Okay. So if I'm going to have a low day now, I know really there's no real reason to line up any extra food. Just keep it low, keep it chill, take a nap if I need to take a nap, do some cleaning. Honestly, I need a low day today. I'm just kind of fried today. It's been training with Mark Bell. You think, and it's so funny too. I was thinking about this today. Like everyone that knows me, like, good job, Russell, dude. You're doing so great. You're doing so great. You've lost 140 pounds or whatever. But if I still went to Safeway today, they'd be like, oh, look at that guy. He's fucking enormous. So like, I'm still pretty huge trying to,
That happened to my brother, Mike. When we were wrestling, Mike got up to like 330 or 350 or something like that. He got pretty heavy.
Mhm.
And then he lost a bunch of weight, and he was probably like 290, and he came out in his singlet, and he actually looked pretty big, like
Yeah.
muscular.
Yeah.
And the second that he walked through the curtain, they're like, "Hey, fatty!"
Yes, I know that well.
And then when he came back when the match was over, he's like, "Hey, did you hear that fucking asshole?" He was laughing about it. He's like, the guy didn't realize I just lost 60 pounds or whatever.
Right. Totally. I experienced that. I know Mike's troubles.
There's that scene in The Incredibles. You remember the movie The Incredibles?
I love that movie.
There's a scene in The Incredibles where he's training. He's trying to make a comeback. You know, he's a superhero and he's working out all the time. And then that woman, she goes, "Oh my God, you've gotten so fat."
Yeah.
She's like looking at him through the
You're right. That's
camera.
after the comeback.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
true.
yeah.
That's actually after the comeback.
I don't know if Ryan will be able to find it, but
That's
it's
a good point.
such a good scene. Probably too hard to find. Anyway,
It's a good scene.
everybody knows what I'm talking
Everyone
about.
should watch The Incredibles with a family member.
Unbelievable movie.
Yeah.
All right, let's get to another question here.
Okay. Freddie's Jim asks, is there an adjustment period to low fat? I'm on day 2 and feeling pretty flat and weak. Maybe I'm not eating enough calories overall.
Yeah, that is responsible for people feeling like shit the most is calories. It could be that you have a pretty good amount of calories out too. But yeah, just eat more, eat, and especially just eat more fruit. I think when in doubt on this diet, I would just say eat more fruit. Just eat more fruit. You could always eat more vegetables, but vegetables aren't going to give you like that great of return. The fruit will give you a good energy source. If you're hungry, that's where the vegetables can really come in. If you're hungry, that's where the protein can come in. The protein can help with satiation. The vegetables can help with like food volume, which can be like critical. But yeah, I would say, make sure you're eating enough.
Do you have like and again, it's too hard, but like I think I heard Jim in his tag, right? Do you have like like I told Brandon a month or two ago, like, go for 300 grams of protein, go for 200 grams of carbs, go for 100 grams of fat. It was sort of a little bit before the war on fat began, right? But do you have like, if you're carb suggestions for people at different energy levels, or is it just too broad because the spectrum of people is too broad?
Yeah, I would say like you don't really have to count a lot, but there's no reason why I can't like share some numbers with people. I mean, I think, from a carbohydrate perspective, I wouldn't be under 200. I try to be like upwards over 250. There could be an adjustment period, like for some people that maybe haven't done this before. It could take some time. I think even for myself, it's taken a few weeks, and I think I'm still getting acclimated to it. Like not just acclimated and used to the diet myself, but like my actual body, like my physiology, I think is like getting more in tune with, okay, this asshole keeps dumping these carbohydrates in there. Let's burn them up and let's have him move around a little bit more and shit like that. So yeah, there's definitely going to be a little bit of a time period where it's going to take a minute to kind of get your footing, but I don't think there's a lot of good reasons for you to be like under 200 or 250 grams of carbohydrates a day. And like I said, if your energy is feeling low, just probably the answer is to maybe smash a little bit more fruit.
It kind of depends on what your goal is, right? If you're like me, trying to lose weight, maybe this guy's trying to bulk and get more athletic and stronger, right? Yeah.
Apple juice or something like that might be a good idea. Some orange juice, all those things go a long way. And I'm not talking about like, just guzzling down giant things of apple juice or orange juice, but your taste buds in this situation, I think they'll tell you the story because there's no fat in the carbohydrates that you're eating. Maybe in this, there could be exceptions for some people where they could just eat tons and tons of these things. But as long as we're not talking about like, hard candies and stuff like that, you're more than likely, you're just going to want to stop at some point. And even with the hard candies, I think that over time, you're going to find it like it's just not that appetizing after you already ate like a bunch of it.
Listening to that, I think there's an inherent point I've noticed for me when the flavor fades.
Mm-hmm.
And that's probably your brain saying, hey, you've had enough. You shouldn't have to go till your tummy's like feeling all pushed out and you're kind of feeling like you're catching your breath because you just stuffed yourself. But like when you learn to adapt to that, oh, this doesn't taste like the best meal I've ever had anymore. Like it's sort of like it's toned down a little bit. That's like a good sign your body's probably telling that it's time to shut it down for the meal, right?
Yeah, I agree. And something I I haven't mentioned that much is water. You know, you're going to want to drink if you're starting to consume quite a bit of carbohydrate, you're going to want to consume a good amount of water. The water can help you clear some of the glucose and so forth. So just make sure you're not dehydrated is the main thing. So you don't have to like go out of your way to drink crazy amounts of water, but maybe you just want to throw in an extra glass or two here and there.
Cool.
Vanilla Thunder asks, "Hey, Smelly, you still drinking coffee? I switched to decaf, but it's hard to stop."
I do drink decaf coffee here and there, but in the mornings I've been just actually this morning I was like, why do I even bother with the coffee? Because I was throwing honey in the coffee. I was like, why don't I just throw coffee in some hot water? So I did that this morning. It actually tasted pretty good. And I did that with like a bowl of fruit. I don't think you have to like, you know, try to mimic every step that I'm doing. But if you want to chop out coffee, I mean, why not? But like if you move to decaf, like I don't really see it being that much of a problem. I think decaf coffee has like 7 milligrams of caffeine or something like that. So it's just not that huge of an amount. I'll take one more question and then we're out of here.
Yeah, Got Hops wants to know why little to no red meat.
It's leaner, right?
Yeah, red meat is just it's difficult to find, you know, really lean sources of red meat. You have top sirloin and you have eye of round. Have you ever eaten eye of round before?
Not that I can recall.
Not very good.
No, okay.
It's not very good. And that was my point earlier is like, you're going to find some stuff that's like, you're going to find some really lean sources of meat that aren't that good. So it should be almost encouraging to like eat a little less meat, period, because I'm not trying to turn people to vegans, but it should be easier to eat less meat because the options, if you're going to eat a lot of meat, have to be so lean, right? That they're not that palatable.
Mm-hmm.
And so you probably are, most of you are probably looking for something more in the middle. I've been doing 99% lean ground turkey. I think you can throw some 93.7 in there and kind of mix it up. And now you have something that's somewhere in the middle of those things. So that's pretty cool. But yeah, it can be annoying to try to follow, you know, having your fat so low. Like
You're
that.
on a cut too, though.
Yeah.
You're still trying to lose weight. Like,
yeah,
probably a lot of your audience doesn't need to lose weight. So does that?
Yeah, I'm not sure. Yeah, what these guys' goals are. I think everybody has the goal of like losing body fat.
Fair.
Right? I think everyone wants to lose some chub.
A little more jacked.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, that's it. Strength is never a weakness. Weakness is never strength. Follow my buddy Russell over here at Russell Buddy on Instagram, right?
Yep.
Strength is never weakness. Weakness is never strength. Catch you guys later. Bye.
Bye.